Welcome to Cryptoland. I'm Krishna Andavolu. Today we're talking about losing all your Bitcoin. Losing your wallet is a tale as old as time, but when it's a crypto wallet, losing your key can set you back thousands or even millions. Motherboard met with people who are dealing with this problem by turning to some pretty extreme measures.
I first heard about Bitcoin in 2012. It seemed revolutionary, honestly.
Ebert Kuffler gave Bitcoin a try in what most people would consider the early days. Bitcoin was the world's first decentralized cryptocurrency. Anyone can mine for one, as long as they have enough computing power to pull it off. Kuffler, who's using an alias to protect his privacy, started in 2013.
In my office, where it was plugged in my studio, I didn't have to run the heater because this thing's just like kicking off massive heat all day, turning electricity into dollars. For a while, it was generating like a coin a day, which is pretty good for that thing. I'm forever trying to remember why I strayed from it. Now, to look back, especially with what it's become, it seems like such obvious folly. Like, oh, I was there early. Oh, I had so many, I could have bought more. It would have been like, fuck you money now.
By 2014, Kuffler sold all but 7 of his Bitcoins and then pretty much forgot about them until 2017, when the price per coin crept up towards $20,000. But to get into his digital wallet, he needed the complex 24-character password that he made and that he kept in a notebook.
I find it in storage, in the box, open it up, flipping through. I know it's in here somewhere. And turn to this page, and here it is, like, this part, gone, ripped out. And I remembered I had put it in my passport wallet. I had taken that to Cuba in 2017 and was pickpocketed there. Lost the passport wallet with the password in it.
Many people keep their crypto in a third-party coin exchange like Coinbase, which controls your currency and takes a commission, but does let you reset your password. Kuffler is a truly sovereign Bitcoiner. He has direct control of his crypto, but he's taking on all the risk too.
If you lose your private key, that's a bad day, and I feel bad for you.
Jackie Coven works for Chainalysis, a firm that's researched the scale of missing Bitcoin.
Looking at cryptocurrency that hasn't moved in 5 years, as much as 20% of Bitcoin is lost. There's certainly the possibility, but that number is far higher.
A guy in San Francisco says he forgot the password to his stash of over 7,000 coins. Another guy in Britain said he accidentally dropped a hard drive with 7,500 in the trash. So 7 lost Bitcoins isn't dramatic in comparison, but it's still worth around $250,000.
I guess the only hope now is to recall it somehow. So threshold dose of ketamine, sensory deprivation tank, a massive amount of mushrooms, I don't know, anything. Hypnosis, I'll go, maybe hypnosis will work.
Kuffler's decided to put his faith in Wallet Recovery Services, which is run by Dave Bitcoin, an anonymous online figure with a track record for hacking into locked wallets for a fee. It's a service that's now being offered by a number of companies, including this family business, which, like all great startups, launched in a garage.
I'm Charlie. I'm Chris, and this is the nerve center of crypto asset recovery. If you lose your password to your crypto assets, we're the guys you call.
You never want to have to talk to us. Like, we're not the people you want to see. 2017, that's when I started getting excited and looking at how I could start a business in the space. I then ran across people starting to complain on some of the forums that they had lost their Bitcoin passwords. And I was like, I'm a programmer. Like, this is a problem I know how to solve.
This father and son team charge a 20% fee on cracking wallets with 0 to 10 Bitcoins, and a smaller percentage for larger wallets. With Bitcoin nearly hitting $67,000 a piece in October, most people would agree it's worth it.
I had purchased 10 Bitcoin at around $140.
Okay.
And then
I promptly forgot about it until 2014. Okay.
Right.
During that time as well, I had also was doing some cleanup around my office area.
Right.
And so I had thrown away my passphrase. I try not to think about it too much because it brings me pain.
I completely understand. Yes. With Bitcoin, the number of possible combinations are astronomical. Like, you could spend hundreds of millions of years just running different variations of that password. So what you have to do is you remember maybe one or two numbers of the combination, and we help do kind of a crafted, customized attack to look at variations of those password combinations until we can open the safe.
So these are relatively common within the password cracking, environment. It's mainly GPU oriented, and that's a graphical processing unit. The CPUs will build a password list, store it in the RAM, and then thread it through to the GPUs. And that's just how we made it the most efficient. And so when we see a big white block of text pop up on the screen, that's when we've struck gold, and we have a wallet waiting at the end of that rainbow there.
We need to code something that does like an alarm or some, sends up balloons or something, but right now it's just like you kind of look over and you're like, we got one! So it's kind of fun.
Even with the best hardware and plenty of time, cracking a wallet isn't guaranteed.
Our success rate is about 32%. Most of the clients that reach out to us, we never end up onboarding because they don't have the right information. It's just incomplete. And so, if you account for all those, it's maybe 1 or 2%, right?
If you think it was formatted and then used for something else, we can go back and try to recover scraps of files. I don't want to give you too much optimism, right? This is a long shot to find this.
When you have a client with a password that is, let's say a 20-character computer-generated password, that is essentially uncrackable. Maybe given 100 or 200 years of compute power, maybe it'll get it. But the chances are infinitesimal to none.
David Webb is one Bitcoiner who's gone to great lengths to make sure he never forgets his password. A fan of body modification, for years he's gotten implants to help him access his prized possessions without the need of keys or padlocks.
This is my gun locker, and it just needs to be turned on, and then I can slide my hand across it.
And they work most of the time.
Slide my hand across it. In answer to your question about how many I have in me, I think the answer is somewhere around 18. It's a lot. I have a piece of tritium right here. I would love for you to get a picture of that, but I can't. It's this tiny little glowing thing that glows in the middle of the night, and I have one on the back of my hand. So some of them are practical and others are just fun.
Today he's taking the same approach with his Bitcoin wallet. He's getting a VivaKey Spark 2 implanted, so he can access his crypto with the swipe of a hand.
You're just gonna kind of feel that small little pinch for a second. I'm gonna ask you to take a big deep breath in for me. You're gonna feel a lot of pressure. You let me know when you're ready.
Okay. Ready.
Okay, big deep breath in. Okay, let that out for me. Okay, you're gonna feel some pressure here in a sec. Good job. Well done, David. Good job.
I have a high pain tolerance. They are relatively painful as far as piercings go. From what I've heard, this is about the same as my daith, and daith was next to nothing, which is the inner part of your ear. But certainly not the most painful thing I've done for body modification. And just like my gun in my car, it's one less thing I have to ever think about. This is secure. I know where it is. I will always know where it is. It's like it's in the back of my hand.
Back in Brooklyn, Kufler has had some news from Dave Bitcoin.
I'm about to try to get into my wallet for the first time in 7 years after many attempts with the password that Bitcoin Dave cracked for me. Yeah, just copy and paste. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's the seed. Wow. Holy shit. Fuck.
After Dave's cut, Kufler is left with around $200,000 worth of Bitcoin.
I'm kicking myself because the password is like, I'm sure everyone says this when they finally get it, but I fucking knew that. I knew it. Yeah, let's get a drink. On me. I can't believe it.
Being your own bank is still a central idea to what crypto culture is, and there are a lot of risks that come with it. But what does that really look like, and why would anyone want to do it? Here to talk about it are Motherboard's Janice Rose and co-founder of Satoshi Labs, Pavel Rusnak. Thank you both for joining me today. Lots of money has been lost because crypto keys and wallets have been lost. To understand why this is a problem, how this is a problem, how it actually works, can you guys explain to me like exactly what a crypto wallet is, exactly what a crypto key is, why it's central to the technology of cryptocurrency itself, and how that, can pose a problem if you end up losing the key? I guess I'll start with you, Janice.
Yeah, so basically, a crypto wallet is basically just a secure piece of software that stores not Bitcoins themselves or cryptocurrency or anything like that, but stores a key which basically points to a spot on the blockchain, which is the public ledger that cryptocurrencies use. And then that key is then used to access the funds that are in that particular part of the blockchain. There's two basically types of crypto wallets. There are crypto wallets that are managed by remote sources, like something like Coinbase or like a service that manages a wallet for you. And then there's also individual wallets that are sort of like programs that you keep on your phone or your computer. And those are kind of like non-custodial wallets that basically allow you to store your keys on a device that you control, which sort of limits the ability for you to lose those funds if something goes wrong, but it also depends on you to like keep that wallet secure.
You can imagine the security key called private key or secure key as just a big number. It's a number that has 100 or 200 letters. And what we do in the computer security is we take this private number and use some operation to create a corresponding number or two-dimensional point that's called a public key. And these two together, they form a thing that's called a key pair. It's a pair of keys. You can give your public key to basically anyone because it's public, and they can use that key to send you coins onto this key. And then if you want to spend these coins, you just use your private key or your secret key to prove that you are the truly owner of this public key that the money has been sent to.
I get it. So it's sort of like, you know how like in a nuclear submarine or something, like there are two keys that have to be turned at the same time before the button is pressed. And like the commander has one, the president has another. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's two elements that have to both be present. And in order to prove that you own one of them, you need to have possession of the other one.
What are people actually losing then? Are they losing this private key? Like when someone says lost Bitcoin, what of these two elements are they actually losing?
They're losing the private key, they're losing access, they're losing that element that is enabling them to prove that they own that wallet, that source of funds. So if you lose access to that, you no longer have a way to cryptographically prove that you are the owner or the person in control of that funds.
It sounds like a nightmare.
Pretty much, yeah.
Pavel, tell me what is Trezor and like how does it, because it's like a custodial wallet versus a non-custodial wallet. It's a fancy way of saying, does Coinbase hold your wallet and key and do you just log into it and then that's an easy user experience? But then there's like the Wild West of like you have your key hidden in your home somewhere and you hope to God you don't lose it. Trezor is like a hardware wallet, which is to say it's an object. You've made an object.
Yes, we did. We made an electronic object.
Okay, so this is a cool solution that you're developing, and obviously like we're in this amazing period where all these solutions are being worked on by the community of people in crypto. But take me back, like how did people actually lose Bitcoin? Was it as simple as like forgetting? If you're self-custodying your own keys and it's in a private wallet, how do you actually lose it? I'll start with you, Janice.
Yeah, with a lot of people, it just means like your device gets lost or fails in some way. Like if you have your private key stored on your cell phone, for example, and you lose your cell phone, that's it. That was the key. That's why the seeds, which are something that's a mechanism that was started for a lot of software wallets also, where if you change devices and you forget to back up your wallet before you change devices, you just need to remember those like 12 words, those randomly generated words, and then it can regenerate the wallet on a new device. So that's like another example of like a safety measure, because a lot of times it will just be a person, for whatever reason, losing access to the device that's storing the private key. So once that happens, if you don't have a way of backing it up, then it's just gone.
Right. And I mean, the number, 20% is a lot. Like if you think about what Bitcoin is valued at now, like if 20% of it is estimated to have been lost in some way, there's like a treasure trove just out there waiting to be found, right? Like it's like buried treasure.
Yeah, but it's treasure that no one can ever access ever. Because basically it's just sitting there. It's on the blockchain. It's sitting there. It's like, there's a computational accounting for this money existing, but because the private key has been lost, unless you recover that private key, it's just going to sit there and be inert forever.
Yeah, the stupid question, but like what happens to all those Bitcoins? They just like sit on the ledger and they don't move around.
Pretty much.
Exactly. And at the same time, this is increasing the value of the other coins that are still in the circulation.
Like, why aren't there a bunch of people who are treasure hunters that are just trying to find, using a computer program or whatever, the keys that are missing, like randomly generating them, and then, just brute force to try to find it. Like in the same way that, on the beach, you see guys with beachcomber metal detectors. Are there beachcombers for Bitcoin?
I think they are, but the chance they found something is really, really small. Like when you recall how I said earlier that the private key is a really huge number, it's so huge that the number of coins is much bigger than the number of atoms in the universe. And if you had a machine that could just count these private keys, it would probably need more power than we have in the observable universe to just perform the simple count. So it's really the astronomical numbers we are talking about.
More energy than in the known universe? Like, that's crazy.
I'm not sure. I don't know if that's... I'm not sure because I've never heard that before, but
I
would believe it.
I love it, yeah. Can we talk about like stories of how people have lost their Bitcoin that are like legendary in the world of crypto?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of examples. Like, I mean, one of the sort of like prime examples is like people who have their wallets stored on, exchanges, because you're basically like we were saying before, you're entrusting the exchange to basically be a bank for you. And there have been countless hacking incidents where, exchanges have been compromised, keys have been compromised, and what happens at that point is just like, those coins are just lost. Because whoever is breaking into the system and gains control of those keys, if you're entrusting it to someone else, then you're also entrusting them to keep those things secure. So that's like one of the most common ways I think that a lot of these coins become lost. And then, yeah, a lot of it is just devices failing, losing, like having it written down somewhere, like your seed or your key written down somewhere, like physically piece of paper, and then just like losing it. Like, it's a number of ways that this could happen.
Yeah, I mean, these stories happen all the time. And there are also some stories with nice outcomes. For example, a person had thought they lost the recovery seat, but 7 years later, when they are switching the apartments, they were moving the furniture and found it somewhere behind the sofa or something like that. So it was a really, really nice surprise. And you might have read the story about the guy who threw away their hard drive, and then they were trying to figure out where it ended, in which landfill it ended in, and started to dig there. I don't think he was successful, but yeah, these crazy stories happen all the time.
Because I did a story a while back on like SIM swapping, and there was a couple notorious cases that we were following where it was a lot of 50 to 60-year-olds who'd put a lot of their retirement money into Bitcoin. And all of a sudden, it's like $1 million or $2 million, $500,000 lost, but that represented their whole retirement. And the anger, just the sorrow of it was pretty intense. And it was like a 22-year-old on the defendant's stand being your fault, kinda, right? And part of me thinks of this as a really old-fashioned problem, you lost your keys or the safe in your house isn't strong enough. You have to rely on yourself. And then we built this whole structure and system about how okay, you have to rely on yourself, but we've got banks, we've got the FDIC to ensure those deposits because we don't want that to go away. We've got police officers to help you if things go wrong. There's a whole system of the world designed to protect your property. Does it have to be this complicated, I guess, is the question?
Right. I mean, the system that's ensuring that you have access to your property, it's important to note, is something that works better for some people than for others. Sure. And I think it's very important in all of these discussions to note that those systems were not created to be enforced equally, and that some people are always going to be disadvantaged by banking systems.
Let's pick up on that. Give me some examples, because I think you're absolutely right.
There's a whole population of unbanked people, what they call unbanked people, who don't have access to bank accounts, whether it's because of not having a stable address, being homeless, all these other factors that can contribute to someone just not fitting into the mold that our society creates, that says this is what you need to do in order to be worthy of having access to a bank account and having access to all these other things, like being able to take out a loan. All of these things are constructed in such a way that benefit some groups more than others. So I think that's always an important point. And so you are taking on a lot of risk as a thing, you have to be responsible in a way that you might not have to be responsible if you just entrusted your funds to a bank when you have a hardware wallet or a software wallet. But at the same time, that other system doesn't work for everyone. So
yeah, the banking system today might be cool, but whatever government comes next could literally change everything. And that's happened around the world. Pavel, can you speak to I'm sitting here in the United States, I'm pretty I've got a decent amount of trust that the government isn't going to screw me over tomorrow. I have a lot of privilege. However, that there's a lot of different places where the vast majority of people might have that fear often.
Yeah, right. I think if we are talking about the risks, we should also talk about the rewards, and that's where discussion is heading right now. I think that everyone should have the right to perform their money transactions in private, because right now we are living in a polarized world where one group is trying to take advantage of the other. And if we are not able to transact money privately, then we lose the ability to defend ourselves. Janice already mentioned the unbanked people. And one example is also remittance. Companies like Western Union are taking huge cut when you are transacting between third-world countries. And this makes poor countries even more poor. And these countries usually don't have international trade because they do not have a common currency. And if they adopted Bitcoin, they would solve two issues with one thing. They would have a common currency, and they would cut off the middleman. So their remittance problem would just go away, or at least would be much smaller.
I see what you're saying about the opportunity of Bitcoin to give the less privileged an aspect of autonomy and self-sovereignty, but the security question and then the possibility of losing it is actually more bad for those who are less privileged. So I think that would be my pushback against what I'm hearing from you. I'm sure there's a solution, or people are thinking about it, because the physical fact of the richer you are, the easier it is for you to secure stuff has been true forever. But what do you say to that? Because I think that it's going through my head right now.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point. And I think that is something I would even extend further into when we're talking about privacy and the privacy that's being afforded to you by using cryptocurrency. I think that with any technology, regardless of whether it's cryptocurrency or something else, there's always a need to recognize that the privilege that already exists is more or less going to remain the same unless it is designed explicitly to help those who are less privileged. So like, I think that it sort of cuts both ways in that way. Whenever any technology is being designed, and this is like what I always say to people, is like, it's always important to ask the question, like, who is this ultimately benefiting? Like, who is this being designed for? That's always the challenge, right? Is like to ask yourself that question so that during the design process, when you're designing new tools, to make sure that people who are disadvantaged are being designed for, and not the people who already have these resources.
In trying to solve the problem of the private key and making a secure yet accessible way and system for people to have it and not lose it, is it also kind of like backing into trying to solve some of the problems of just digital identity writ large? The concept of digital identity and how you verify it, is that a use case for the kind of technology that you're developing with a hardware wallet?
Yeah, I can totally see the future that can evolve into that. I mean, there are already cases where we already use digital identities. For example, in Estonia, you can participate in election just by using your ID card, which has embedded chip inside. And that's already a digital identity in there.
Well, no, and I think that the idea of digital identity is kind of interesting because, like, what is a key but a way of saying this is me and I have access to this? So
yeah, that's kind of the whole idea behind like having the, you know, the private key, like we were talking about, is like that is a thing that you possess, and possession of that thing is all that's needed. You don't need to give your fingerprints or your iris scan or your biometric identifiers. And like, yeah, it's all about how it's implemented though, because like there are various examples of like governments using biometrics as like a form of identification. And so what really matters is who, if anyone, is the custodian of that system and who is implementing it and how are they implementing it.
What I really like about the concept of digital identities is that it allows you to own more than one identity, because usually when you have an ID, then you are using the same identity for whatever use case. You are showing that at the gas station, you are showing that at the election, and these can be used against you, for example. But with digital identities, you can have as many as you want, and they really didn't need to be linkable. And this allows for us to create pseudonymous identities. And I think there are a lot of use cases where the operator of the service don't really need to know your true identity. They just has to know this is user number 17 that has returned, and I need to show him their data and not data of somebody else. And this is also very, very exciting.
Well, we got to a lot of different places from just a bunch of people losing their Bitcoin. And so I'm thankful to both of you for talking through this, because it is very technically kind of difficult for me to understand, but the implications are huge.
Thank you very much for invitation.
Yeah, it was fun.
Thank you.
And thanks for you at home for watching. That's it for us. We'll see you next time.